This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Subramanian on the show. She is the author of a book, The Sought After Leader, and she's worked in tech for quite a while, over 20 years at Microsoft, and helped other leaders like us now with coaching and people to become better leaders and the sought after leader, which we're going to talk about today. Anyway, with all that being said, Uma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. It's fun and honor to be here today with you and your audience.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about how you got into technology to start with, and then shifted your focus into leadership and why that's important to you.
Sure. My journey started in New Delhi in India, where I grew up. And my sister, who was already at Microsoft, ended up sharing my resume with the Microsoft recruiting team here. And long story short, I ended up in 2001 at Microsoft in Seattle to work there in the developer content space. Mm-hmm. So writing technical documentation and code samples and all that kind of stuff around developer education and developer evangelism for Microsoft products. That's where my journey started. And then I became a people manager. And then I evolved my role from developer content to developer evangelism and developer community within Microsoft. And in 2022 or 21, when exactly I had completed my 20 years at Microsoft, I got an opportunity to join a tech startup in the Bay Area and lead their global developer community and developer team. So that's what I worked at for a year there. Long story short, that ended up as being a short-term stint. I ended up quitting after a sudden incident. My story is there on LinkedIn. But after that, I was in this situation where I was like, okay, what do I do next? I, done Microsoft tech startup. I was in this crossroads of what is next for me, and really just reflecting back on everything that had happened in my career and my own journey of how I moved from individual contributor to a first-time manager, and invested in myself to become a leader. That when I left Microsoft as well as the tech startup, both of those were very sudden, last-minute decisions. No one was thinking I was going to ever leave Microsoft or the tech startup. And when I left, my teams really, felt like, oh, I don't think we would ever have another leader like you. And I know they probably have amazing leaders now, but at least that's what they felt. And all that kind of together gave me the idea and the confidence to start Limitless Leaders, where we now help tech professionals become more visible and influential and become sought after within their companies.
So tell me about that transition period, where you went from individual contributor to manager, because that's one of the things that I like to talk a lot about, because for me, that was a challenging time. It was not easy. And I wonder what your process was, what you learned about yourself, and how you've taken that forward.
If I honestly look back at my entire career so far, those first 3 years of me taking up that people manager role was the most difficult. Really. So again, just like anyone else, I was promoted to a position, a math people manager position, because I was a super high performer, did really well. But as you know, it's not the same when you take up a people manager role.
100%. Yeah.
So many shifts that have to happen and so much growth that needs to happen. And I did have an amazing manager and a support system. But in spite of that, I struggled. I came in with lots of ideas to
Hmm.
change things really fast, and that was the first no. And I did many blunders like that, many blunders. And I also got pregnant and had my entire, like, pregnancy and maternity leave and all that in that first 3 years of my becoming a manager. So that definitely added to the stress and, the complexity of the situation. But overall, I would say it's for me to have to at some point realize that, hey, Uma, like whatever you were doing and however you were operating, that worked well as an individual contributor. But it's not the same thing that's going to work as a manager. And realizing that, coming to that awareness, and then taking intentional steps to work on myself to figure out what those gaps were, what are the, how do what are the things that I need to change. I'm a bookworm, and I read
Hmm.
every management and leadership book that I could order on Amazon. Literally, like I read, every book. I just was so curious. I really wanted to understand because that was the first time that I struggled even a little bit. Like I was a rock star performer all through that. And then when I became a manager is when I got a taste of the first struggles in career. And so I was very motivated and went and hired coaches. I read every book, every leadership book, and really changed and honed my style to become more like a servant leader. Satya
Hmm.
had also come into Microsoft at that time, and his style of empathetic leadership was also something that we were all exposed to and learning from. So all of that kind of coincided with my journey, and so I really learned how to become that leader that can deliver results with people and grow people and help people and support the right way, but also be the one that can deliver results and move the organization forward. I think it's a balance
Hmm.
between like um, accountability and loving the team and caring the team. But I that was kind of the balance that I had to learn and evolve
Yeah,
as
yeah, I agree 100%. I had kind of a similar experience where that first 18 months was really rough. And I picked up a lot of books. I read lots of Simon Sinek books and whatever I could to kind of hone in on how to be a better leader. And had a mentor that really helped me out a lot during that phase. And I like what you said. You said you had to work on yourself first. And I think that's a
well.
one thing that a lot of people, when they get into management, they feel like they almost have to prove themselves first instead of working on themselves first. And that's kind of like that problem that they run into because they want to change their entire team and move things around instead of working on themselves first and then carrying that through.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the exact mistake I made. I came in and I thought I had to, make other people better and make
Yeah.
the situation better. And then I had to learn that no, it has to start with me. And yes, you nailed it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I learned too. At one point, I had two people quit on the same day for without even knowing that they were both quitting. They both just came in. I only had six people on my team too, and two of them quit on the same day for two different reasons. And I talked to my mentor, and I was telling him because I live near Charlotte, North Carolina. I was like, "Well, the banks are paying more than we are. They're going to, And he's like, "That's not why people quit. They don't quit for a little bit more money. They're quit because you're a micromanager and you're holding them to standards that are not feasible, and you're just not a good boss." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that hurt."
Yes, totally.
So tell me about coaching and helping other leaders. Like, what's that process like, and what's your strategies for getting someone started and helping them guide through their journey of leadership?
Sure. So usually, clients come to me when they're in that mid-level, about to get to the senior leadership kind of phase. So they have already, doing great. They proved themselves. They have gotten many promotions to get to where they are. But then they find themselves making that shift from like a senior or principal band to the director or VP level a little bit. That's where they're stuck, and they're like, okay, I know I'm doing everything right. I'm working really hard. I'm delivering results, but I'm not, you know, getting those opportunities and promotions. And that's usually when people come to me. And what I have seen is just like the individual contributor to the people manager transition, there is another transition that needs to happen at this level. Because everything that we have been taught traditionally about working hard and delivering results and getting rewarded works in that early part of the career trajectory. But when we hit that border of mid-career to senior leadership level, it's not enough anymore. Those things don't work. They are not sufficient. That's the baseline, but it's not enough to cross and get to the next level. There are many shifts needed again, and that's pretty much what I help with. And to mention a couple of shifts. One is what I see is when we just do great work and don't take the steps to make sure that that value is clear to people and known to other people, there is a gap. And I call it the perception gap, because many of my people come to me and tell me, Oma, I'm doing great. And I even have great relationships with senior leaders. They trust me. They know that if they ask me to do something, it gets done. But when it comes to promotions and opportunities, it's going to someone else. They're not coming to me. And the way that I have been able to make sense out of this and help my clients now is, what happens is people are seeing them as very reliable executors, implementers, but not seeing them as leaders, not trusting them on their leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that too. I've seen so many times where somebody's, really good as an individual contributor, really good at doing things. They become a manager and they're still delivering, but they're seen more as that practical, individual contributor instead of that leader. And perception gap. I love the term of that. And it reminded me of when my first management stint. I had a really good CIO, and shout out to Mike Coleman if he's listening right now. But anyway, he helped me with understand the value of marketing your team and your accomplishments. And because I would tell him all these things that we did, and he's like, "You're not saying it right. You're not saying it in a way that makes sense to executives." He's like, "If you go and you meet with the board and you say these things, they don't care. Like, it just doesn't sound like you're doing anything. Turn it into something that matters." And being able to market my team to what matters to those people kind of close that perception gap that I think you're talking about. Can you talk a little bit more about how to do that?
Yes. Yeah. That is the work now that I do now. And my book is also about that. It's about bridging the gap between the value that you actually bring and you're delivering and the value other people can see and trust, and leverage you for. So that's really what I do now. And some of the steps, as I said, definitely you brought up marketing your team and communicating your value, connecting to what matters to the organization, what matters to the senior leaders. Definitely one big part. And typically what I see is when people think of this, and once they understand that, okay, there is a gap and I need to do something, that's the first thing they think of is they think then they need to go and communicate and they need to make sure that they're known, which definitely one of the pillars. And I definitely think that is foundational and we have to do that. But what I have realized in my studies and my own lived experience, as well as observing others in my throughout my career, is it's not just that. It's not just communicating your value. It goes beyond that. And one of the first things is you have to first and foremost elevate the value that you can bring. Because everyone's creating value. I mean, nowadays, when you go to an organization, many people are creating value. How do you stand out? How do you make yourself that person that is sought after? It's not by just creating and executing on the things that are in front of you. It's you have to go above and beyond that. So to give you an example, my own life, one of the opportunities that I had at Microsoft at one time was to create a half-a-day developer training to evangelize our AI platform. so developers would start building on it.
Mhm.
Literally, that was the task at hand. Was, hey, maybe let's. It was an idea thrown at me, and hey, let's put together a half-day training. What I saw was I could have just taken that and executed it, but what I saw was it was not just an issue of developers getting trained on how to use the platform. That was not the problem. That was not the root cause of what was really keeping senior leaders up at night in the organization. There was no adoption. And and this was an internal AI platform that every Microsoft team was supposed to use to build their products. And every product team was building using their own silos and operating in silos. What was needed was a shared vision, common language, and so much more than just developer training. So what I saw was a company-wide developer conference
Mm.
where we bring in the leaders of the likes of Satya and EVPs and from different organizations coming in. I with tracks of separate tracks for new developers that have never been exposed to our platform and getting them excited about the platform, having like an advanced track for developers that are already building on our platform and have want more depth, having partner showcase where some of the teams that are already building on our platform can come and show off what they have been able to do with their platform, and ask the experts where people can come and ask questions directly to our team and get their technical questions answered. So I envisioned a full large scale company wide conference with multiple tracks, partner showcase, ask the experts, all of that. And it was not in my job description. I was in the product organization. I reported to a product management chain. Definitely no experience or expertise in throwing company wide conferences. But nothing stopped me. I went and got myself a mentor who was running another developer conference within Microsoft. And with his help, I understood what it takes. I put together a full plan, a vision, and went and shared with the leaders and got the buy-in and the approval. It was a huge endeavor, obviously, across the country. I mean, cross countries and all that. And it became a multi-year success. And we did it in every country that we operate in. And until I left, that was my biggest thing that I ran and delivered.
I love the way that you took initiative, to not just do, not just try to do what you were told, but actually to truly solve the problem in a way that was profound, and, that's one of the things I think a lot of people are afraid of. They have fear, you know, like you went big. If you went, well, what if it failed? There's always that fear of like, what if it failed? But I like the fact that like it didn't, so you can always just say, well, what if it doesn't?
Right, exactly. And the thing is, and the thing people, that's the other thing I help coach my clients with now is they all come up with this, that, hey, Uma, I mean, these are huge risks. Like, how do we take that? I actually think when we take these types of big risks and, think big and go for big things, we're not operating the same way. So we're not and we are thinking very differently. Like when I decided that, okay, maybe this is what we really need is a company wide conference, I didn't think of myself as, hey, I know how, I'll figure it out and I'll do this myself. Nope. I went and tapped into my network, found a mentor who was already driving a company wide conference, got his support, and built a support system around me. And because of that, I actually think I didn't have even an ounce of doubt that it would fail, because I had built that support system, and I knew that. I mean, there were obviously. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it was all smooth. I mean, it was one of the hardest things. I mean, we were learning and making mistakes and doing things, but there was a support system in place to support me through the entire process. And it didn't feel like at any point in time that this would be a total failure. Like one of the reasons I think many times we might have that fear is when we are not taking enough steps to make sure that there is a system behind it, right? So I mean, I put together a system behind it, so there is not a big chance of a complete failure.
Mhm.
Of course, there were problems and issues, and we had to deal with them. There were hurdles, but not failure. So that's what I would say is, for the people that are afraid or, have a fear of taking on bigger things, know that when you take on these types of big things, you're automatically operating differently because you know that you cannot be doing the same kinds of things. You need to, get some systems in place. You need to get some support systems in place. You need to get people. I mean, for these conferences, I had more than 250 people just in the US helping put together the conference, right? I mean, of different like caliber and seniority levels, like starting from like senior leaders to.
So let me ask you about that. So how do you, they don't report to you, you're not their boss. So how do you influence them to get on board with this and sell the idea of like, this is going to be big and help out with it?
So that's the thing that I really like when we are so tapped into what the organization needs, right? When you know what is keeping senior leaders up at night, when you know what is the some of the fundamental like root problems that the organization is trying to solve, and you tap into that. Like one of the things that our organization at that point was struggling with was adoption, and I knew that adoption was an issue. And so when you do that, you get buy-in from leadership, and then from people. I had many people at my level or even the individual contributor level that had to play a different role, participate and ask the experts or be a speaker in one of the tracks, or be in the partner showcase and all that. And you're right to ask me how I was able to get that buy-in, and that is from giving them visibility and opportunity. So what ended up becoming is this hope opportunity gave visibility and opportunity to hundreds of people. They got to come and present on the stage. They came, they had an opportunity to be on the booths and talk to our direct customers, which are developers from other groups. So everyone got visibility, opportunity, recognition. And one other thing that I do, which has really worked for me and now I coach, is when people help me on my projects like this, which happens a lot. A lot of people do help me. And when they do that, I actually make sure to recognize them, sometimes multiple times, sometimes, at the end of the whatever the engagement is, I CC their manager, my manager. I send a glowing email with the value that they have added and how appreciative I am. And I've always done that. And that has also worked. And these are not like manipulation tactics. Like these are just genuine things that I believe in, that, when someone works for you, helps out with a project, you don't want to make them feel good. And so
Right.
I've done some of those things, and what I have seen is people then just want to work with you again and again. So the next time you go and ask, they are ready. They know that they get visibility, they get opportunity. It's one of the most strategic things that's happening in the organization. So it's just something that people want to be associated with.
Yeah, you're really making it a win-win for everybody, Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when it works, right? You have to make it a win-win for everybody, and that's when it works.
Yeah. So one of the things you talk about in your book is the SOAR framework. Can you walk us through what that is and kind of what that means for becoming a sought after leader?
Yes. So SOAR stands for SOAR. S stands for strategic impact. That's the first one we just started talking about, which is really elevating the strategic impact you can create for the organization. If you want to be sought after, that needs to be your foundation.
Mhm.
You need to move beyond what is in front of you, the execution, the implementation, all of that, and really be thinking about what's next for the organization, what's the future, what should we be doing, how should we take the organization forward, and playing in that space. So it's playing bigger moves and playing in that space where the future of the organization is. And so that is the first pillar. The second pillar is O, and it stands for outstanding communication and influence. This is something I'm still working on. I think I'll be working on my communication and influencing skills till the last day of my life. But this is a continuous work in progress, at least for me. And I do really think for everyone that needs to be a priority. We need to really understand how to communicate and land our messages, how to move people, how to, get buy-ins and alignment from people. That is something that, we need to work on and be in that space where we are able to influence others. The third pillar is authority and personal brand. I really think, whether we are intentionally building our brand or not, all of us have a brand. People have an impression of us. And in the many decisions are made when we are not in the room,
Mm.
right? So all those promotion conversations, those game-changing opportunities, many times are getting discussed when we are not even in the room. Somebody has to take our name and speak on behalf of us, put their credibility behind us, and vouch for us. And so, really, making sure that we are intentionally uh, working on that brand, and not faking or performing. I don't mean it in that way, but really understanding that just by, me being me, people may not perceive some of those things. Like I could be doing some things that may not be perceived, but just having that awareness that it's not enough to be doing great work and then, staying quiet. It's not enough to be, not being aware of how I'm coming across. These things are important. You have to know how you are perceived. And if there is a gap, you have to bridge that and taking intentional steps towards that. So one of the things that we do with my clients is when they work with me, we work on making sure that we have, they understand their leadership brand very clearly, like what they stand for, what is important to them, how they want to be known, and what do they want to be known for. And they learn how to communicate that and prime that into the conversations. So it's all aligned and people can also recognize it and remember certain things about them. So we do make it a little bit of an intentional thing, and we have seen great results with it. I had just one client very recently when we started doing this work, and she started very clearly articulating some of her brand in different conversations at the right times. Again, it's not about self promotion or bragging. Completely not. This is about elevating your impact and making sure impact is known in the right way. And when she started doing that, she's getting now 2 invitations for director roles from 2 senior leaders.
That's awesome.
And so that's, yeah. So those are the things that, starts to happen when you do this, because people don't have the time. They don't have the time to make, connect the dots and figure out, oh, this person good for this or not. Like if you make it a little bit easier for them to know what value you bring and, how you can help and what your aspirations are and all that. If all of those things are known, then people can easily help you and also leverage you for whatever they need. So that's the third pillar. And the last pillar is relationships. It's R for relationships and trusted circles. And really, I think relationships are your biggest leverage.
Mhm.
We cannot go far alone. We can go um, faster and better with people. So really understanding that and building a good trusted circle of people by again giving as well as supporting people and being authentic. Some of those things, but that's the fourth pillar. So those are the four pillars of my SOAR framework. Time and again we have seen that when we put these four pieces together of elevating our strategic impact, becoming a better communicator and an influencer, and also sorry, getting over a sore throat.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay. So, and when we intentionally, pay attention to the brand and make sure that there is no perception gap, and the fourth pillar of having a good relationship circle and trusted circle, it all comes together very quickly, and people love to work with you, want you in rooms, and even when you're not present in a room, your name comes up positively and for bigger game-changing opportunities.
Yeah. Well, so going back to what you said about the brand, one of the things that I learned, really not that long ago is that everything that you do and everything that you say, whether you mean to or not, is kind of building that personal brand. Every Teams message you send, every email that you send and respond to, every phone call that you make, you're building that personal brand, whether you like it or not. So it's important that you may want to craft a certain narrative, but you actually have to be authentic and live that narrative to truly craft it.
Exactly. Yes. You have to definitely live that. I mean, the brand is a living thing, and people
Yes.
are seeing like all the time. People are seeing us, experiencing us, hearing us. So yes, 100% embodying what we want to be known for, and it is key there.
Yeah. So, could you tell the audience just a little bit about how they could maybe connect with you online, learn more about some of the things that you do when it comes to coaching and helping people out, and pick up a copy of your book?
Awesome. Yes. So my book is officially in print as of May 2026. I'm hoping it comes out in June. We're hoping to publish in June. So you'll be able to find it on Amazon or your local bookstore, hopefully at some point. Right now, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm usually active on a daily basis on LinkedIn. So that's the best place to reach out to me. And we also have a website which is available on my LinkedIn profile. And would
Awesome.
love to connect. Yes.
Awesome. I will link that too in the show notes at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through to your LinkedIn, the website, the book page, and all those things so they can find a copy of that when it comes out, when it's available in print. And anyway, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I really liked your SOAR framework and the things we talked about with the perception gap. It was very helpful for me, and I'm sure it will be for the audience too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.